And welcome everybody to Graded Point Live. We're glad to have you on tonight. We have us a special guest, Mr. John Celestri, who has a campaign he wants us to look at. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Hi, how you doing? All three of you, how are you doing? Everybody else in the chat room.
I'm doing fine. I've had a pretty chill day. And how about everybody else?
It's a day. I got through it.
Just about.
My hand hurts from drawing. That's all I gotta say.
My hand hurts because I cut it earlier today.
Oh.
I was. Well, it was a little cut, but enough to I was putting some ribs on for dinner, and I was opening the package, and you know how they say cut away from you?
Yeah.
Never cut towards you. Yeah, I didn't do that. I did the exact opposite of that because I'm a big dummy.
You rebel.
Man,
Already got a greeting from the chat.
all of my
Hello, Wyatt.
instructors' faces in my classes with me with an X-Acto knife. They would always look at me with horror when I was doing whatever the work was.
Did you ever learn to use using an X-Acto knife to do zipatone cutouts?
Yeah, it was all sorts of cutouts. I had to learn 3D design using it and some other design stuff using the X-Acto, and I just cut the way I cut. They did not like the way I cut, but they liked the finished product. So,
well, they shouldn't watch people make sausage. That's all.
Yeah,
That's true. That's true. My father used to work in a actually he was a farmer, so he worked in the getting the pigs to market kind of thing. And so sometimes he would hang around and see what they did to the pigs after he got to the market. And he tells everybody, he said, you don't want to know at all what's going on in that situation. Just be glad you can buy it in the store and let it be. That's what he said.
I had an instructor like that when I was in college. We're in the finished product doesn't matter. It's that you get there the way they say you get there. And that's not right.
see, that seemed the way they were acting, and I was like, look, I'm getting high grades with my finished product, so just don't watch me cut. I can safely say all of my fingers are still here, even though they said they wouldn't be. So,
Well, you proved them wrong.
yeah.
Yeah, take that, school.
Yeah.
So let's see. I got to put this up. My boss says I never cut anybody I didn't mean to. Okay, then.
Stream Elements is running Elements. Okay.
There they did it.
All right.
So Piper, you're up. You're
Hey, here's a super chat. Love you guys.
Thank you, Wyatt. We appreciate your super chat. Thank you so
Woo.
much. So let's get down to the brass tacks. Make sure I know what I'm doing. I'm going to share the audio of that, and there is your campaign.
Yeah.
Yay!
So tell us about Rough Sketch. Tell us in your words.
In my words, what I put together was I figured nobody knows who I am, so I figured a way of introducing myself to the comic book community was to put together a portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I did was I said, okay, you can only do so much on Twitter or on Instagram or on YouTube. So I figured let me put together samples of everything that I've done, or at least phases in my career, and maybe there'll be a way to introduce myself and get a small little publishing company going for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I figured this would be a way to do it, and so I've got samples from the various shows that I've worked on. I worked on Raggedy Ann and Andy, on a Rock and Rule, on a Space Ace, animated Boba Fett and Star Wars Holiday Special. Worked on as I said, Rock and Rule. Worked on Batman commercials. And then material that I'm working on now in comic books. Doing comic books the way I enjoyed them as a young kid. So that's what, in a nutshell, what this project is. And since I gathered I have drawings from the last 45 years. Well, no, really about, if you include the couple that the many that my mother saved, I still have little samples of those just to show you where I really started from.
Mhm.
So I've got that, and
Oh,
yeah, rejection letter from Disney when I was trying to start out, and so that's in a nutshell is what I've got in that in the portfolio. And then I've got various tiers, like only basically three basic tiers. One is for PDF of the rough sketch, and with one of my Snuffy and Zoe books that I've got out, that I've got ready to go with, and that's What Do You Do with a Stinky Pirate?
oh,
And it comes with lyrics too.
Okay.
oh, awesome.
So that the first phase is the assistant animator. That's the PDF digital format. Then I have the journeyman animator. You've got the most the 80 pages. It was 84 pages now, but it comes with those the PDFs, and then the print version of Rough Sketch, and then the master animator has all that material plus a pencil sketch of Boba Fett that I'm drawing out for whomever gets to that phase. And in my Star Wars Holiday Special style, you can see that's the pose that I'm drawing.
Yeah.
And then the other one is the Giant and the Animator Special. It has two print copies of the rough sketch plus the drawings and the PDF of those other two books. So I was asked to do that. Some people wanted to have two copies, so I said okay, and everything is signed, so you get it all.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah, I just want to, I want to point out to everybody who's watching right now, this is the guy who animated, Boba Fett in the holiday special. The only good thing about the holiday special.
Growing up, when I first heard about the Star Wars holiday special, my dad remembered that. All he remembered it was the Chewbacca Life Day thing they did. But the cool part about it was, you got to see Boba Fett. That was the one takeaway from all of that, was you get to see Boba Fett.
Well, I have to tell you that when I was watching the only broadcast of it,
yeah,
I'm watching it, and at 10 minutes into the show, I'm thinking, oh my Lord, I hope there's an audience by the time when Boba Fett shows up.
Oh.
I was really I was worried, and I said, okay, well, the cartoon works. I know that, and that was the end of it. I mean, I'd never seen, I hadn't seen anything. It was never rebroadcast or anything of that sort. In fact, I didn't know that anybody even remembered it until about 15 years ago, when somebody said, "You drew Boba Fett?" I said, "Yeah." Oh my Lord! So I didn't know, but I still kept my drawings.
Yeah. Against George Lucas's wishes, there were tapes of it that floated around, and now you can pretty much find the Star Wars Holiday Special anywhere.
Right. Yeah. Well, I know that the ones the best, the crispest. Oh,
that's a good word for it.
Clearest.
Yeah.
It's late for me right now. I've been up since 5:30, so a.m., not p.m.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Yeah.
The clearest and version of it on YouTube that I know of is from the Clive Smith, who was one of the owners, and he was the director at Nelvana, and he was our director on all those cartoons. So I know that he put up that that version, and so that's the cleanest one I've seen.
Yeah, because I know it's on YouTube, and I think was it Ethan Van Sciver makes house guests watch it. I think it's to make them leave. But as usual,
I don't blame you. I mean, it's a terrible live action show.
Well, yeah. On paper, it makes sense. It's a variety show. This is what variety shows they watch in the Star Wars universe at a time when weren't variety shows more popular when it was originally broadcast.
Oh yeah, well everybody did Donnie and Marie. Everybody did. Everybody was doing those sort of things. But you know what? It was very weird just to see it. Okay, I mean, let's say what is that? The broadcast was what 1978. I'm 29 years old and I'm cringing.
There's a term that people use, and it says always lead with your best shot.
Yeah,
they should have led with the animation.
Then would be a real excuse to turn off the TV set after that.
Yeah. Because like I said, this was a year before I was born, so obviously I couldn't watch it live because I'm not that old. I remember watching it since then. I was like, oh, I don't know how many times I said ugh during and that's pretty bad when you have to say ugh a lot. But then when it got to the animation, I was like, now this is cool. It was still still felt like Star Wars. And it had it still had that alien flair to it, because I say Star Wars and Alien, like whatever, but it felt like this could be leading into the next movie. It was like it really did feel like an in between story between the New Hope and Empire Strikes Back.
I call it 4.1.
Yeah, that's a good term for it. Yeah.
I think the biggest thing about that, for me, is that we were directed by Lucas to follow to be inspired by Mobius from in the Heavy Metal magazine.
Okay.
And if you go back and you look at the Mobius of in his material, not his cowboy stuff like Blueberry, when that sort of material. If you go back to Heavy Metal and his comics, they had a clean look to it, but it wasn't it wasn't overly rendered. It had, it was a lot more colorful. It was colorful. But it wasn't garish.
No.
And there were a lot of clean lines to it. So, but we followed that. GD says it was very George. Star Wars hadn't been homogenized yet. Yep, it did. Yeah, I mean, but everybody, we were all about the same age. Lucas is not that much older than I am.
Yeah.
And we were all running on energy, on raw energy, because we hadn't really done a lot. Lucas, once again, he had done American Graffiti.
Yeah.
That's a whole genre in and of itself. But when we were doing the holiday special, I'm like 3 years into the business. That Boba Fett is like my, like the fourth show I had animated on. I had only been animating for about a year, what was it? The staff the average age was maybe about 24 years old. We didn't have a lot of experience, but we ran on a lot of energy. So anyway, that's and also you got to remember, I drew Boba Fett with 4 fingers, not 5. I keep seeing that mistake made over and over and over again. Why can't they just give him his 4 fingers?
Yeah. I mean, artist intention, right? You want him to have 4 fingers. That's a
Well, that's what we were drawing. We were using. We were doing the animation, the animators convention. Unless you were doing real humanoids, very
Right.
Actual humans, then you would deal with it. But we were just doing a thumb and 3 fingers.
This would probably be a good time to ask. I've always wondered about that. Was there an animation reason for that, or was it a stylistic decision for all the cartoon characters to have just 3 fingers and a thumb?
Well, that goes back to animation, like especially when you're doing animals, like Mickey Mouse, or doing all the other characters. Now, Popeye was 5 fingers. He was a human,
right?
But Woody Woodpecker, all of the animal kind of characters that you would do, even some of the original Tom and Jerry. When I say Tom and Jerry of the original, there was a Tom and Jerry human characters before the cat and mouse, and they had, I think it was like 3 fingers and a thumb, but it was just easier and quicker to draw.
Yeah,
that's why. So even Cindy Schlepper there has got but she's a mutant.
Okay.
From Rock and Roll. So
not human. So you could get away with.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like For example, he this 3 fingers, thumb.
Yeah. But the thing about it is that unless you really, really count them, and if you make them work, you don't notice them.
Right.
Yeah.
There,
especially for the audience they're intended to. Nobody's going to be sitting there counting fingers.
Oh, listen, bean counters will count everything.
Oh my goodness.
So tell us about the because I remember when I was young, we got a satellite dish because we had in North Carolina, cable was very spotty, cable TV. And so we got a satellite dish. And so if you remember those old big dish satellites, you got, you would get like news and stuff from and stuff from different markets. You wouldn't get your local anymore. So I remember the Zellers commercials with Batman.
Okay. So you must have been getting them from Canada.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I do remember those, so hold on one second. I think one of my other co-hosts has popped in. There he is. We bring him in. Hello. Hello, Mike.
Hello.
And say hello to John. He's our guest tonight.
Hello, John.
Hello. You're Evil Bob, huh?
Yeah, that's what I call myself.
Okay. EB.
Yeah, he's not that evil though. He's
okay.
He's only marginally evil, maybe 25%. But yeah,
mortal. He's venial.
Yeah. So yeah, tell us about these Batman commercials, because like I said, I remember seeing them. I'm like, I thought, because when I first saw them, I was like, is there a new cartoon coming out? Because that looks awesome.
Well, we were. This is back in this is 88, 89.
Right.
And I was. Let's see. I had been working at Filmation, and I was on staff there. But then I had moved out of California and was living in Rhode Island, and I was doing FedExing back and forth to work on the shows. They send me a package, I'd work it, and then send it back to them. Then Filmation was as soon as I was in Lorimar. Signed the contract where they owned Filmation, they shut it all down.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was looking for work, and the week, it was like 1 or 2 weeks after everything was shut down, I got a call from a friend of mine who had an animation studio, a commercial house in Toronto. The gentleman was Greg Duffel, and he had a studio called Lightbox, and he was doing commercials for Canada, in the Canadian market. And he was saying, well, we had worked together on Nelvana, on Devil and Daniel Mouse, and on Cosmic Christmas, and a whole bunch of other shows. and other things, and rock and roll. So anyway, he asked me if I would be willing to do, be interested in doing Batman commercial. I went, sure. So it was planned out that we would do the certain sections of it that didn't have to be changed very much. It would be sort of a stock footage of reused footage from one commercial to another. Okay. Mm-hmm. Then we do specific animation for that commercial, and then there are some bits and pieces that could be adjusted from one commercial to the other, and that's how we did 4 30-second commercials with Batman with various defeating various villains: Catwoman, Joker, Penguin, and Riddler. Mm-hmm. And so that's that, and what we did, the way we actually produced it, it was very fast, considering what we had, how much, animation was really being produced and the quality level we wanted to do. You see those crosshairs there, mm-hmm. Those registrations, because these all my drawings were on, they were all on 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper. And I faxed them all.
Oh,
yeah. So that's my rough drawing. Mm-hmm. Okay? And the blue did not show up. I bought the best fax machine that money could buy at the time. It was everything was on thermal paper, but it really it didn't just print out a pixelated line. It was a very crisp line. And so, but it took about 2 minutes a page to go through. So I'd finish a day's work and crosshair everything, and then put it into loaded up the 30 drawings or so onto the fax machine and send it out. Nice. And overnight. And that way it was faster than FedEx.
Yeah.
So that's, and that was the highest technology we had. Oh, and I got to remember, it was landline.
Yeah. So that's when you said all night. You were not kidding.
Yeah. No, I'm not kidding you. No,
yeah, I know.
An hour. I mean, if I sent 30 drawings, it took 2 minutes a drawing. So that's an hour.
Yeah.
Man. Now I've never actually seen the Zellers commercials. To be honest, the first exposure I had to Batman growing up was the existence of Batman '89, of course, and which shortly led to Batman the Animated Series.
Right.
Yeah.
Are we able to pull any of those up?
Click on that YouTube. See if that works there. No.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, I got it.
Right there.
Okay. Yeah, I got to. Well, let me do this. It'll probably pull up. Oh,
video. You can't. It won't let you do it. Okay, never mind.
Well, we don't know. Let's see. Hold on.
If you go to Zeller's Batman commercial, there you go.
It should bring some up.
There
we go. All right, so this one with Catwoman. We'll start with that. We'll start.
With to do the Catwoman. Okay.
Attention! Family thinks high toy prices are joke.
Holy one-liner, Batman!
Wow, that's smooth.
Drop your punchline, Joker! Listen, folks, only at Zellers are you protected by
the law of Toyland.
It's all synced there, but that's only because it's all. It's just you're not going to be able to see it right unless it's going through too many hoops.
Yeah.
You're protected at Zellers because the lowest price is the law.
The animation was like really solid and smooth.
Yeah.
You see why I thought there was like a new cartoon coming out when I saw it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It really. I was like, holy Moses. Yeah, trying to get back to here we go. All right, we're back.
Okay. So the let's see. What happened was that we did that, and then the Batman the Animated Series came out off of that. Mm-hmm. And the same studio. I mean, Greg did he did the promo reel rather the sample reel to pitch the show with Paul Dini and
Bruce Timm.
Bruce Timm. So Greg did that. His studio did the animation and pencil testing and such, and did that as to sell the show as a film. Bruce Timm is Bruce probably does not remember me well, except we sat in the same room at Don Bluth's working on Space Ace and Dragon Slayer.
Nice.
Yeah.
So y'all were responsible for all those frustrating times I fell into that chasm and died.
Oh my god.
Hey, listen, I one of my the death scenes were my specialty.
Those are all fun.
Yeah.
There was a I've always said, if you're going to play those, you need to play them as as don't do a translation. Play the as the original was intended, right?
Yeah. Oh my god. Everybody should have to.
Because I think they created like a Super Nintendo version of both games, and they were like terrible. Yeah.
I don't know. I listen. I tried playing them in the lobby at booths, and you didn't put any money in it. I mean, you got a chance. You said, okay, you get somebody. It was set up so that everybody could at least take some shots at doing it, and so if you died 4 or 5 times, then someone else had the chance to go after it. But I was not very good at it. I could time it, I could draw it, I could build it, but I just couldn't play it.
I would say, in terms of video games, because we had Dragon's Lair and Space Ace, that eventually paved the way for all the FMV games that would come later. Point and clicks.
Yeah.
I think it also led to us getting Cliffhanger, which I believe was just a Lupin the Third movie turned into a game.
Well, that's another sore point. I think. This is old man talking now. Movies are just video games to me now.
Yeah,
have been for the last 15 years.
That's about that's about when we really went more CGI and less and went away starting to go away for animation. When's the last time Disney did an animated movie? Right.
Right.
Dude, I miss 2D animation. It'll always be my favorite.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Because at least there's an appreciation. I don't know if it's a generational leap or what have you, but from about 2000 till about what was it? Maybe about 2015. All I could hear is, well, we don't need 2D animation, and then suddenly there is a certain age group that creeps up and gets older and say, you know what, I kind of like that old stuff.
Yeah, well, see, it really makes it miss it because 3D animation, what they can do with it is really cool, but I feel like it's missing something that makes it a little bit jarring or weird looking to me.
You can't do wild takes in 3D CG. Like you can, but they don't look as good.
Yeah, it's like there's some things that look good in CG, especially like certain things like Toy Story.
Well,
that was made to be in like 3D animation and stuff. But for the most part, especially if there's a lot of like human-ish characters, I much prefer 2D.
Well, the thing about it is that with 3D, everything is perfect.
It's terrifying to the eye because
it's mechanical. But it's cold. It's cold. There's a metallic element to it.
Yeah, I feel like it takes the character out of it, and it turns it from like really working on something to looking like you're just putting it out there, like there's no passion in it or something.
Well, the best way I can explain something like that is 3D animation is puppetry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're manipulating the form from the outside. And as an artist, when you draw, when you draw with a pencil on paper, there's two ways of are you feeling the drawing, or are you just observing and copying the drawing? And so when you animate, you're feeling the performance from within of the character. Then
Yeah.
and then it comes out, and then you start once you've done the posing and you have all the feeling there, then you can layer on the design.
Mm-hmm.
And there are imperfections, there are happy accidents, which you don't have in computers, because if you have an accident, in a computer, it's not happy. It's just not working.
Mm-hmm. Well, I look at some of, I thought about this, like, leading up to this. When you look at, traditional animation versus like, computer animation now,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things is like, you create a model, for, in computer animation
Mm-hmm.
for the character to be,
Yeah.
and you put clothes on that model and everything, and you can have it looking really good. There's one thing, if you notice in those movies, how many times, or in movies or TV shows and stuff, how many times you see those characters change their clothes?
You can't.
No, they're always wearing the same thing.
Well, you can't even lift. You see, texture, tactile aspect of taking your hat off is very different. It's like a whole nother. I mean, you can do it, but it still doesn't. It isn't the same. The amount of squash and stretch that you can put, even subtly or broadly, it just does not feel the same, because there is this metallic feeling to it. I mean, even Gumby feels more human.
Yeah.
Because being touch, once again, you're manipulating Gumby. You're manipulating, all the form, and you could see the fingerprints, and you could see all that.
Yeah. Say, just trying to do that, create characters where they change clothes, or they change outfits, or change locations. As I understand, even with CG, that's absurdly expensive, as a serious hurdle that they have to deal with. The original Max Steel show that ran in the mid-2000s, when Max Steel was a secret agent. I remember reading interviews where they talked about that. That's why Max Steel failed, was it was absurdly expensive, because Max Steel goes different places every week. So that's a new area we have to render. That's a new set of buildings we have to create. That's a new location we have to render and texture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it becomes like a lot more work than probably if you would just to draw it out.
Well, up to a certain point. Well, yes. First of all, it's a lot more expensive to build these models, the environments and such, than it is to draw them. That's for sure. And also, whenever you're making a change of that magnitude, then just the drawing alone, is a cost saving. Because you're going to have to do the design of the drawings, the environment anyway. Everything has to be done, 2D, at least, for that one before it's built.
Right.
Yeah.
I also imagine that with the drawing, you're just drawing what you need, as opposed to, well, we have this in like these 4 or 5 caves, because Max is going to be walking down a cave in these 2 scenes, and we're going to need some different angles, and we may use some of this, we may not use all of it.
Well, you could do that the same thing with in 2D. That's a directory. That's a director's and story a choice. But what the attitude for animation of the 2D animation is that you don't do anything that you don't need to do. So everything is done not just in script, in storyboard format. In fact, the most experienced animators or directors knew how long a script is, time-wise. And you would once live action people got into producing and directing the various TV and features. What happened is that they say, well, let's do this version and let's do that. They'll overwrite, and then they'll have storyboard people overwork everything, and then they cut. Well, you're wasting a lot of energy and pencil mileage, and just energy is the big thing.
Yeah.
So and you can tell how long just even with just to take an old-fashioned, take a stopwatch and just thumb your way through the script and just say, okay, character's going to go through here. Well, you're going to do this, and he stops and turns over here, and then he's going to go to there. Pause, stop, click. You can time it real easily. You don't need to write until the cows come home, and then we'll change it in editing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's the term? Yeah, we'll fix it in post or whatever.
Yeah. So I was a part of a production, kind of a fan thing where we. I also wrote that, and I also said, "Don't worry, I can fix it in post." I was the one doing the editing. Like, we don't have enough footage for that. I can fix it. No, I can't.
Well, it's kind of like I liken it to this. I remember this is when the live action Transformers movie was being announced and coming out, and if you can't tell, I'm a fan of Transformers.
Yeah.
And I was excited. Hadn't seen any of the designs yet or anything like that. But what keyed me was when they were at Comic-Con one year, and the producer of the film was on the stage, and he plays a voicemail from Peter Cullen that's saying he is the voice of Optimus Prime, and I lost my mind. I'm like, yes, he's back. It's like, and but then it started then I started getting worried because they were talking about well, who's going to be Megatron? Who's going to be, because then people were really getting this who's going to be this? Who's going to be that? And then, he says something like, oh, we'll figure it out in post. And I'm like,
Frank Welker would probably love to take the job. I mean, he would probably like to have a speaking role. He does a lot of animal noises and background noises, as I understand it.
He does, but then they went with Hugo Weaving, which I don't know. I mean, yeah, the movies were kind of a mess, and as they call it, explodey metal instead of just being real transformations. But the one thing that bugged me about it was Hugo Weaving was Megatron, and it just never felt right. That was you need to have, if you're going to bring back one, you need to bring them both back. Because it's like apples and oranges. You got to have them both.
Still, for the first movie when it came out, it was still exciting even after watching it, just because that was the first time really taking Transformers and mixing them with live action.
Yeah, but
so it was still really cool.
It was cool for what it was at the time, and then it became like I said, it became more. Bigger explosions, exploding metal,
Yeah, then I stopped watching them. I dashed out for 1 and 2, I think.
Yeah.
And was already okay, I'm over it. The coolness factor of it is over.
Even then, I felt that there was still too much emphasis on the human part of the story, that they were a guest star in their own movie. But I at least understood that it's kind of important to get some of this stuff out of the way and establish the Transformers as a part of the humans' world.
Yeah.
And I was okay with it. Then they did the same thing for the second movie. Come on, guys.
Yeah, you already established now. You don't know. Yeah. But anyway, that was kind of my, thing about because, of course, I was a huge fan of the first movie, obviously, the animated movie. And so, we remember the big, confrontation, Optimus Prime, Megatron, right in the middle of the movie, everybody dies kind of thing, and and that was impactful. I went back and looked at the guy. I was like, man, this is 1985, and I'm sure they've been working on it. Johnny, you can attest. I mean, you're working on animation. I'm sure it's worked on 3-4 years before it's ever seen on screen.
The features are usually a 2 to 3 year production. That's the traditional way of doing it. The 3 years in production, and then it goes. Then in that a few months later, it's out.
Yeah,
that's what it would be. Yeah.
Yeah, because now about a movie, with the age of the internet, and it's like, oh, there's going to be a movie. If let's say we're sitting in 2015, or there's going to be an Avengers movie in 2018. We know that far ahead now when a movie's coming out.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't know if it's really worth. I mean, I understand, that they want to get it out and keep it going, but after a certain point, it becomes anticlimactic.
Mm-hmm.
What's the surprise? I mean, maybe you need to be excited for 3 years, before something happens.
Yeah.
I remember some of the best movies that I saw. I was shocked that they were coming out. Right, like I would go to one movie. You remember when the trailer? You actually go to the movie to watch trailers. See a trailer for the movie. They don't even do that anymore. They don't even play trailers before movies anymore, hardly.
No.
When I went to see Godzilla in the summer, there were no trailers before the movie. It was just they went right into the movie.
I was going to say I've always seen trailers before the movie.
I guess my theater is just like, what's the point?
They're just like, let's skip that.
Probably depends on the movie.
It may, but
yeah. Well, there's also there is 10 minutes of commercials.
Yeah, they do that now too. It's like, hey, go to the lobby, get a snack, or check out this new Chevy, or
I was going to say they just show regular commercials now.
Summer.
Yeah, they show TV. They're advertising TV shows at the movie theater. I was like, what are y'all doing?
Yeah.
I remember one time I came in, they were doing a TV commercial for that was at Once Upon a Time or whatever that show was that ABC was running.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I was watching this trailer, and there was something about why is my blood pumping? Like, why am I getting jacked and excited? This is not my thing. And then I realized the music they were using was stolen from the Mass Effect 2 trailer. The really good one that gets you hype when you see it. Like,
yeah, that's another thing. It's a lot of borrowing now.
Yeah.
A lot of borrowing.
The art of trailer craft is gone, it seems like, because the trailer is supposed to make you want to go see the movie, not tell you exactly how the movie ends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not spoil the surprise. And these days, people they're cutting bad trailers, and then nobody wants to go see the movie, and they're telling the audience that they're bad for not wanting to go see the movie that they didn't advertise well.
Yeah.
Well, I just cannot stand the fact that they would show you'd have the best gags, the best action, and so on and so forth. They're not ads, commercials or trailers are supposed to be sizzle.
Yeah.
But they're giving you the whole steak and then expecting you to come back and pay for it.
Right.
It's really just. But I know that the industry, reasoning for that is that the audience wants to make sure that they're going to like what they see when they come and pay for their money for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that especially when it's like $15 a pop.
Yeah.
I understand that, but it's kind of like, well, if you have a decent movie and it has good ratings, or good reviews, then you don't have to have a trailer that tells you all the bullet point and the plot points.
Yeah, especially word of mouth. Just, if your friends go and actually see it, they're going to tell their friends, and then they're going to tell their friends. And, but I can't tell you how many times me or a friend of mine has left a movie going and telling our friends, don't bother, all the best parts of the movie are in the trailer, or all the good parts of the movie are in the trailer.
Well, like I said, the trailer should get your butt into the seat. That's all it should do. Whether it's a good or bad movie at that point is kind of irrelevant. It should be there to get your butt into the seat. I hope it's a good movie, but that's you made the choice at the end of the day to spend your money on this movie because of the trailer.
Right. But notice that old-fashioned, the older trailers only were 30 seconds to 60 seconds long.
Yeah.
The trailers now are longer than MacArthur's Park.
Well, give you an example. I remember this when I was a kid. I was a teenager. But I was watching. We went to go see. I was during over a Christmas break. We went to go see Street Fighter the movie. I know it's Street Fighter the movie. It's a terrible movie, but I was an idiot kid, and I was like, I love Street Fighter, so I'm gonna go watch this freaking movie, right? And we go in, and it was so funny. I still remember to this day. Me and my friend went to go see it, and it just so happened 2 other friends showed up, and we were literally the only 4 people in the theater. So we had to run to the place. It was great, but we were sitting back there, we're watching it, getting ready for this movie, and then all of a sudden we started hearing this music, this like, metal beat was kicking. And I was like, what in the world is going on? And it was the Mortal Kombat trailer. And all it was a zoom in on the dragon logo. It was nothing else. It didn't show no action or nothing. And we said, we're going to go see it. And it said, it showed the release date. It said it was like that summer, right? So in 6 months, you were going to see this movie. And it's like, that's the way it was back then. You didn't find out about movies on the internet because there barely was an internet. Even at that time, you heard about that and you were like, holy Moses, I want to.
I think we talked about that on the Outlaw stream a little bit the other day, and that was that ever since the proliferation of CG started, people have forgotten that sometimes less is more.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with all you're saying.
See, some people say, "Oh, it's just a generational thing." I mean, you're looking at like, well, 2 different generations in this chat, and we're both agreeing on the same thing. Because I don't know, man. It's like they always say, "Well, that's what the kids want this day." I said, "Do they really? Or is it because that's what you fed them?"
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, a good story is good. Story is story. Now, if what you're promoting is a roller coaster ride, that's one thing. But if you want to do a plot-driven story that has action, I don't think there are very many people who can, that people will produce that much for some reason, because it doesn't. It takes a lot of talent to actually write it and understand how to do that sort of thing, because it's a lot easier to pull through all of those various dips and turns and whatnot to get an adrenaline rush, because that's the producers who are running it saying, well, I want to feel excitement in that manner.
Right.
It's kind of the same way of with comic books in terms of what I have seen. They're trying to stretch out that plot line over 5 issues.
When back in when I started collecting, you maybe had 1 or 2 issues, you were done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what? I am. It's a really hard thing to do a good. Well, it takes a talent to write a solid story that's maybe a 23, 24-page story, and not one with only like 3 or 4 panels a page, but I mean really do an old, a 1963, 62 story, Fantastic Four, let's say, and you had your dime's worth right there.
Yep.
But it's solid. I always talk about, when someone asks me what I consider a good story is, I say, okay, take any one of the first couple of years of Marvel with Kirby and Stan Lee in their heyday as younger people in their mid 40s, and they're really cranking it out, but they got all the various elements. You've got character problems, interpersonal relationships, but you had they had your action, and you had your all kinds of. I want to come back to watch more about that, but the story was completed.
Yeah, that's a good point, because we talked about this many times on our streams, and to very heated discussions, and we're not heated at each other, we're heated at the industry as it stands. And it's like we'll say, a friend of mine says one time, I said he had made a good point. I don't care what Iceman is eating. You know,
Yeah.
I care about what Iceman is doing. Is he like is he fighting the bad guys? You know, is he doing this? You know,
I could have gone the rest of my life without knowing that every now and again Iceman has to use the bathroom. I get it, we can just assume that, when he's between panels or between pages, he's handling his business, and I want to see Iceman go on adventures and do cool things.
Well,
no pun intended.
Well, also another thing come to storytelling. Another friend told me this. He said, when they were leading up to, the whole bait and switch with the Batman and Catwoman wedding, back last year, and he said the one thing he said he got turned off from. He said Batman is my absolute favorite character of all time. I was like, okay. He says I don't want to know that Batman and Catwoman are having sex. Because they go into great detail now talking about it. He says, it used to be, and John, this, it used to be that kind of thing would be like, you would see the after, like, Batman, like Bruce Wayne gets up out of his bed, puts his robe on, and she's like still asleep. So you knew something happened. It was implied.
Yeah.
You didn't.
That's all you needed.
Yeah.
Why are you? Well, first of all, it's really a thing of where we're trying to show their humanness, their humanity and whatnot. But you know what? It's a comic book.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a story. I want to be entertained. I know what goes on. I mean, Batman and Catwoman. They've always had that relationship during the 40s.
Yeah.
There was always that. That's, you just don't need to do it. It's weak writing.
Mm-hmm. It's when you have to go into. I mean, when your images can tell more story. I always said your images tell you. Somebody said a comic book is a visual medium. Your images tell your story. Your dialogue tells what they're thinking. You know. Or what they're saying, he said, but you don't need I don't want to call out. Well, I'm going to call out somebody like Brian Michael Bendis, who does he did Avengers and he's doing Superman now, to much to many people's chagrin. We're talking about dialogue, dialogue bubbles that are taking up entire pages almost.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just covering up all that good art when there is good art. You know what I mean? It just, what's the, okay, Superman went and flew and blew up, and stopped the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I really need to hear him explain what he's doing while he's doing it. I see it.
Okay, there's the similarity between animation and comic books. Okay, Animation, the best animation, has a minimal amount of dialogue. You don't have to. If you show the person doing something, you don't have to tell the audience that they've just done something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's just there. You have anticipation, action, and reaction, but you prep the audience for what's going to happen. You do it, and then you have a break. It's kind of like everybody is running, but no one's landing anywhere. When you make a jump, you're leap. You squat down, you leap, and then you land. But everybody is just all over the place, in action right now in movies.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's no breath. It's kind of like not having any in a drawing, not having positive and negative space.
Yes.
It's just bad. It is. It may make an impression, but it's kind of explosions everywhere. I don't know what to look at. But but the thing about with dialogue and with descriptives, and if you look back at old comic books, they really heavily had, and then Superman decides he's going to go somewhere, okay, and then in the dialogue that you have the little caption. And then, Superman is saying, I'm going to go somewhere, and then he takes off. And I've just landed at someplace. And, that's a very bad writing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I would, but you can still take that away. And, if you edit a lot of that, you start seeing a lot better writing in the early Marvel comics. of Fantastic Four. I mean, just a solid explanation or a solid 12-page, 10-page story. One of the best that you're going to do is is Spider-Man's origin.
Yeah.
It has everything in it.
Yeah, and like you say, you can tell it in 10 to 12 pages, and it's done.
Yeah, and it's done.
You know everything about the character. You know his motivations and everything like that. It's like I remember when they did, the new Spider-Man movies through, Disney. Yeah, and they said we're not going to do an origin. I was like, but you really should, because this is a new take on Spider-Man. You don't have to read like you said. You don't have to take the entire film to tell an origin. It could be literally, you could show clips, at the beginning of the movie, when they're showing thing, you could show when his Uncle Ben died, you could show like a news headline, Ben Parker, passed away on this day, and it shows Spider-Man stopping the crook that killed him, and stuff like that. So you get the origin without delving into it and having to, it's very, you could do 1, 2, 3, you're done.
You could build a marketing campaign out of just releasing like 2 or 3 trailers that when you put all 3 of them together is the origin story.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
There's this weird fascination with comic books and just superheroes in general, where this weird philosophy of the deconstruction, wherein our inspirational heroes, there is a fascination with breaking them down to finding out that they are just unlikable humans, just like the rest of us, and that everything they do that's heroic and is good is secretly not good because they're just fulfilling their own egos. And I think people are tired of that, because Superman was inspirational because, Superman is effectively a living god, and he asks for nothing, but he gives everything.
Well, if you go back to the original, like the first few years, he is basically, helping the common working person.
Yeah.
I mean, he was basically, this is pre the idea of him being a god of some sort.
Yeah.
The fact that, there you could do all kind of want to do a Moses parody or the acts, just all of those elements, of the Old Testament and things of that sort. That never really happened. I never saw that happen until the Superman the movie. You know, that's when the first time I saw that. But if you go and take a look at the original first couple of pages of Superman in Action Comics #1, it's only a page. Right there, it just says that, and then in Superman #1, it's only it's a 2-pager, and that's the origin. That's it.
There's a good point somebody made one time, and I think Xavier was talking about the deconstruction of a hero and all that stuff. Superman is the character, and I'm using him. He's the archetype where when you're reading a book and something really bad just happened, like this is a world-ending threat or whatever it is, you see that big red S and coming down from the sky, and it's like he's got it. That's what Superman's supposed to inspire. Hope.
Right.
He brings the hope. I don't care. I shouldn't say I don't, but yeah, I don't. It's not interesting to me. What is his Superman's motivation should be? I'm here to help people. That's it.
Well, that's what it is.
Yeah, that's it. There shouldn't be anything added to it. That's it. He's here to help people. That's all he cares about.
I shouldn't know that he and Lois Lane had a fight about their marital issues on the way here.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you have Blondie and Dagwood for that.
Right. Exactly. You're exactly right. But speaking of comics, I've seen you talked about that you want to get into comics and start pushing some out.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That what I'm going to do, and when on the back of the Ruff sketch, I've got samples of some of the pages that I've worked on, and the books that I've done, and ready to go.
Right.
I've got. I'm aiming them at that like, for example, the Snuffy and Zoe drawing, that page there. That's based on my cartoon characters that I did as a YouTube video.
Okay.
I did 2.5-minute video,
Mhm.
with music and such. And then I said, okay, well, let me see if I could do it. It took me 2 years to do it
Right.
on my own. And so, but I said, okay, let me write stories about these characters. And the idea of John the Animator comics is that I'll do a line of comics where I have my own characters and crowdfund them as best as I can.
Yeah.
Doing it, but it's aimed at from about 4 or 5 year olds up to 12, 13-year olds. So Snuffy and Zoe, that's that's your market from about 4 or 5 years old to about 7, maybe 7.5, 8 years old. And
Mhm.
then I have Mega Moose, which is a character I did 30 years ago in as a sort of a magazine. Well, I did it as a Sunday, a weekly, but
Right.
I ran it for about 18 months. So I did that and said, okay, so I'm going to give it another twist and bring it and update it. And it's Mega Moose there's a touch of the original Captain Marvel in it.
Right.
And so it's a kid who has been bullied. He's given the ability to change into a power totem. I don't know if you're familiar with shamanism, but
Oh well, we got a shaman in here. Yeah, evil Bob is he's a Native American, so he tells
okay,
you.
well there you go. Now, Mega Moose has got the moose is one of the most powerful totems, So Mega Moose is that he has all of the powers of various native spirits, rather animal spirits and such, and so he combines all of the abilities of he's got the power of an ant proportionally in terms of strength. He's got eyes like an eagle. He can do this. He can do that. He can run. And so it's this bullied kid who's given the power by with a magic feather, sneezes, turns into this Mega Moose, and then if he sneezes again, he turns back into being a little kid. So that's the superhero aspect of it, and I know that the original Captain Marvel was my favorite. So this is my way of saying, okay, maybe I could do it this way.
Like doing homage type.
It's an homage thing, but there is a different thing. It's there, but it's on a different level.
Right.
So that's where I'm going with that, and all the stories are self-contained within an issue.
So when somebody picks up that story, they get the whole story. They're not getting a part 2 later on or anything like that.
No. You've got, for example, with the first Snuffy and Zoe story is the Dragon and the Cupcake. It's a 22-page story. Okay, but with Snuffy and Zoe, they jump into it's an imagination exercise. They jump into their toy box, and that's where they have all their adventures. They go into another dimension, which is their imagination, and that's where they meet all these various characters. The same way with the pirates. The pirates are they're balloon pirates. They're pirates that are made out of balloons.
Yeah.
And that's like a 32-page story.
That actually sounds like something I would have watched as a kid, because growing up, in the 80s, 90s, you get a lot of weird, funny ideas. So you play in your toy box. You imagine that this is a portal somewhere.
Right.
I didn't understand how people got inside the TV for the live action game shows I wanted to be on, but I knew there was this panel in the back of my parents' closet that I guess led under the sink for the plumbing. And I thought that on the other side of that, that's how I get to the TV world. I don't know why I thought this, but
that's it. It's the idea of Snuffy and Zoe it's called Toy Box Adventures. It's the whole idea is that they go and do that. So
it's a very nice to like, I think I saw you mention this on Twitter. Something for the youth, for kids. There's not a lot of stuff for kids out there anymore.
But this is what I know how to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So supply that market. That's what I say. I've seen. I think there's like a couple, like just from like Comicscape people, like Mandy's doing the Wizard. There's a guy, Sean Davis. He's doing Pillow Man and Blanket Boy, and so something like that. I think you could be very successful doing something like that. I think that would be a lot of people. A lot of people my age in this age group have kids.
Yeah.
So
what's the age group in terms of the kids that you have? In terms of what's the age group we're talking about?
Well, it's the guy like I'm 40. And a couple here are like in their 30s, I think, yeah. And so you're looking at somebody who might have kids between like at least 4 and 12.
Okay.
In this day and age, I don't have kids personally, but I can appreciate a need for that market. You know what I mean?
Yeah, theoretically, in the next 10 years, I might have a child at some point. It's not. I'm not confident about that, but it could happen.
Well, that's the thing. That's what I this is what I've got. I mean, I figured this is. I know how to do. I write. I know how to do all these stories. I know how to create the artwork. I know how to pace everything. And so this is like one step away from an animated cartoon.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's how I draw naturally. So I figured, all right. I think one of the things that is missing from a lot of today's work, in talking about even as such, I was told, and this is one of the things that kind of irked me for a while. And that was when I did I put up my animated cartoon of Snuffy and Zoe.
Mm-hmm.
I said I was told, I was somebody who typed on a comment saying, "This is way too innocent for the internet."
Oh dear.
He's not wrong.
Right?
Well, there you go. So where am I supposed to go? I mean, that is such a sad commentary.
No.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. But and the way the internet kind of works is if there's something innocent there, there's something else going on, is what a lot of people think.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's,
they want to put ulterior motives on just about anything.
Nobody just does nice things on the internet.
Yeah, that's what and that's a very, like you said, that's a sad commentary.
Yeah.
Who changes that? Well, we do. That's the kind of thing, as time goes on, put more stuff like that into the market,
And the only way you can do that is by putting your effort into it. Now, you see, I know how difficult it is if you've got a full-time job and you're trying to do something. This is my full-time job. I'm 70. I don't have to go do anything else.
Right.
So I figure, all right, I'm just putting everything I've got into it. And eventually, I mean, there's got to be a couple of hundred people that'll buy this thing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely. You gotta. I mean, like I said, people are buying those books, and the key thing is, like I always said, we're talking about the kids, but there's also like that old saying, "The kid in you." So somebody will buy it just for themselves. Because
as soon as I send my bill payments in next week, I'm getting one.
Yeah, there you go. So I'm honestly, I'm looking forward to your what you bring to the table, because. And like I said, I would definitely, encourage you as somebody who I would call it, pardon the term, elder statesman. I want to see your take on things. I want to see the innocence of it again. You know what I mean? I don't need to know, I don't need to know this and that and the other and blah blah blah. Just put out that good wholesome story. There is a market for it. People do want it. So
I think it's something we do desperately need, because going back to what I mentioned earlier, the deconstruction angle, because everyone has been told that your inspirational figures don't do anything just because it's to fulfill their own ego. That's why nobody could just trust somebody's doing a good thing for the sake of doing something good. And to kind of reteach people that sometimes you just do good because you can, and it's good.
Well,
I think that's important.
Well, there's another thing I want to say about that. It's like you said, do the work that you want to do and never be afraid to make money.
Right.
Yeah, I see a lot of people say, "Well, if you really loved it, you would." I was like, "No, if I love it, I'm going to try to get paid for it." You know, that's the point of having a career, right? I mean, like,
well, I love it, and I also want to keep doing it, and that takes money.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Well, here's one of the things. A question to have is when we're doing Kickstarters like this, okay, and everybody's got to figure out, well, how much is what are people willing to buy to pay for it now? Because you cannot print these 1,000 copies and put them somewhere in a small house and stuff like that. I can do these things, with a company called Mixum, and you could do, small print runs of 100 per issue, that sort of thing. But they're still expensive, in terms of in comparison to other things. But if you're doing a crowdfunding, it's a different market than if you were trying to sell it in a bookstore.
Right. I look at it like this. I was talking to a friend about it last night, actually. The crowdfunding, like your Indiegogos and things like that, and Kickstarter, you're getting the gauge of your market, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are people who they're not just like, 'cause as they say, crowdfunding is I don't want to call it an investment. It's like almost like a donation to you. They're like, we want you to make this here.
Yeah.
And of course, your supply, you're going to give them something, but there's also there's also I just want to donate money. Let's say somebody just said, for example, somebody said, I'm just going to give them $1,000. I don't want anything. I just want I just want this book to be the best it can be. That's the kind of thing, like that's gauging the audience. We want to see it. It's a good indicator. Because. Right. Some things take off. I mean, you can go on Indiegogo, go on the front page. You can look at 100 different. Some things take off, some things don't. It's all.
I know about self-publishing because my wife and I wrote and self-published 5 crime fiction novels in the 90s.
There you go. So
and I had when we were living up in Cincinnati, we had a basement and we had several thousand copies of each one of those books.
Yeah,
so I know what it's like to go through all of that, but the market has changed so much in terms of you have to not go that crazy, but we didn't have crowdfunding back then.
Yeah, because I know a lot of folks what they're doing, and I said I honestly think it's a brilliant idea. They're taking like their books. I know people who are crowdfunding comics right now, and they're doing and so they're saying what they're going to start doing, like. Their crowdfunding book on Indiegogo, that's going to be the special edition, right? This is going to be like every bells and whistles going to have it's going to have art, it's going to have concept art, it's going to have all this stuff. And he said, and then they said for the secondary time, for people who come in later who missed out on the crowdfunding, we're going to put it on Amazon, print on demand, and they're going to get a quote standard edition. So they'll still get the story and everything, but they're not going to get the and being print on demand, you're not sitting on a bunch of books.
Well, yeah, except that the type of printing that Amazon does, there's a whole lot of things there in terms of the level of especially if you're doing, printing, and printing is still expensive.
Yeah, well, like I said, it would take them because when they were talking about it, it would take them like a few of them banding together and doing it, not just.
Oh yeah, okay,
yeah. You're probably looking at like 4 or 5, maybe 10 creators getting together and putting this together. As one, company kind of thing, and then doing it through that. But I said it's an interesting idea. And he said because the biggest thing is, like he said, trying to keep a way to have an income stream going on when you're working on another book. Getting it ready for another crowdfunding. At least those books are still selling. Kind of thing.
Right. Well, that's why I like the in demand thing.
Yeah, the in demand's nice too.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm just saying that's why I can't do 5 and 10-year plans because of where I am. I mean, basically, I'm saying, okay, well, for the next year, that's as far as I want to plan out my
right.
And so that's why I say, okay, I'm going to do stuff that I could say, all right, I've done that, here it is, and so on, and then I'll do another one, and work it from that point of view. That's the way I feel. but what my initial plan is that when I do the next Kickstarter or an Indiegogo, because I'll do Kickstarter and Indiegogo. There are two different markets.
Yeah.
So, but if everybody knows where I am, some people want to support Kickstarter, some people want to support Indiegogo. I'm hoping that I can have they'll want to support me either way,
Right.
And so what I'm going to do is what I'm going to do is I've got as the inaugural thing to do for John the Animator comics. We'll have the two Snuffy and Zoe books, a coloring book with Snuffy and Zoe with drawing, with instructions on how to draw and such. And then also have the Mega Moose comic book.
Right.
There's like four books there, and do that as maybe a $25 level.
Yeah.
So it'll be about 100 pages worth of material.
Right, which I think it's a good idea. And one of the things, I don't know if the creator Billy Tucci. Yeah, he recently did both, like you're planning to do. He did a Kickstarter and an Indiegogo. Now the beauty of it is, yes, he did it both, but the Kickstarter, as you know, when it ends, it ends. There is no store. But Indiegogo, it kept going. So what did he do? I said, brilliant idea. He created an Indiegogo exclusive cover for She. He did a special cover. You could only get that one on Indiegogo.
Okay.
So, that was a way to keep that market going on that campaign. I said it was actually a pretty good idea in my opinion.
Okay. Well, I know that he was running them simultaneously.
Right. And so when they ended, the Kickstarter picked up more money at that time, but to keep like you said, to keep the in demand going, well, here's an Indiegogo exclusive cover.
Right.
And it kept that going, and that's still making money. So, I think, like I said, it was a good idea. It worked out for him. So, like you said, there are different markets for these things. So,
right. And that's the thing, is it? But my primary thing first is to make sure I've got the right stories, and I've got the first two. I've got, as I said, the Snuffy and Zoe material that's ready to go. I've got a 12-page origin story for Mega Moose. I need to do another, say, 12 to 20-page story to complete the issue.
Right.
And then we're good.
There you go. And it sounds like you want to get it done, and everything's done before you launch, kind of thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I want to do that. I found, the Kickstarter was, I started it October 1st and it finished October 31st. Okay. And then 2 weeks later, I started the Indiegogo campaign and did it that way. And that, and that's where we are now,
Yeah.
So I have to fulfill the Kickstarter and this Indiegogo campaign before I do anything else. I have to have those out. Otherwise, it's it'd be like saying, well, they're juggling too much.
Yeah, I've always that's my thing. Always finish your campaigns before you launch the second one. And also, and my thing, have your book as close to finish as possible when you launch your new campaign.
Right.
Because I God bless them. A lot of these creators, they come along, they wanted to do this, and first time doing it, they didn't know. They didn't know what they were getting into. So they, and then of course it drug out. I'm not say drag out because they were working. I'm not trying to say they weren't working, but they were. It just went longer than they expected, and they're like, well, and I've heard many creators. They said we need to do better next time. We need to do better next time because you can lose your market really quickly if you keep, going too far out.
Any one of these here, especially crowdfunding, because it's all they're taking a chance on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is the most important thing, is that you'll be able to show, yes, I'm just ready to go. Like I did this here. The only thing I needed to do was to lay out the the stories.
Mm-hmm.
This in terms of rough sketch, I've got the drawings were all there, they're all in the past. I'm just typing in what I wanted to do, and I've got little stories that are going through, and that's pretty much all done. So I'll be completed with this, with all of the elements, in about another week and a half.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do a sample, a proof copy for myself, and through the printer, and then by the end of by February 1st is when I send it to the printer, and I'll get copies in about 2 weeks after that.
Yep. And another, of course, one thing I've always said, I lean on folks to like do better about is keep your updates coming, right?
Oh, yeah.
Always keep, it's like, even if it's like, we're going to be delayed a week, or, from sending it to the printer, tell them, tell your people that's happening,
Yeah.
but and try to keep constant. I says, do you have to do them like every week? No, maybe at least once a month. I say, do a once a month update. Say, here's your November. If you got a book, it's going to take you 6 months to get ready, or something like that. Every month, like say, okay, we're at this point. Okay, now we're at this point, and then we're at this point. We're going to print, and then the books will be here on X day, and then we're gonna, just keep them updated, because I've seen a lot of campaigns. I mean, there's some campaigns who never fulfilled,
Yeah.
and that's troublesome to me. I was like, 4 or 5, I mean, I know certain, these are 4 or 5 years that they haven't fulfilled anything. I'm like,
Well, I don't understand how they can't be. Well, isn't that kind of a lawsuit? Waiting for
it's going to eventually happen. It's going to eventually happen, because right now they're getting by with like the wording on Kickstarter and Indiegogo where it says, you're basically helping fund a project. That does not necessarily mean you will get a project.
Oh, that's no, come on. That's I mean, especially if the money has been there is that. Well, that's Kickstarter and Indiegogo's way of staying away from being in the middle of the two.
Right.
But you know what? The creator and the supporter, and the backers, there's something called, the credit card.
Right. That's during I'm sure that some of the folks here remember there was a video game crowdfunding back in a few years ago called Mighty Number 9, right? And it was not being, what they were showing. It took them forever to show something, and what they showed was not what was promised. A lot of the rewards were never delivered. And so a lot of people, they said, "Hey, I want a refund." And they said, "We're not doing refunds." It's like, okay, I said, "I hate to go this route, but I'm going to do a chargeback."
Star Citizen.
And Star Citizen is another one. Star Citizen is hundreds of millions of dollars, and still no game to go for it.
They're selling material that doesn't physically exist that you might get to enjoy in a game that may get finished some faraway day.
And maybe. Yeah, there are people who are paying, John. There are people who are paying like $10,000 for a JPEG image of a ship.
Because they've been promised one day you'll get to fly this ship, maybe.
Yeah, in the video. Yeah.
I'm too old for this.
yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah.
I'm getting too old for this. I'm like, Murtaugh from was it Lethal Weapon? Get too old for this. But yeah, so we can go ahead and start wrapping up, because I know you said you didn't want to be up too late because it's time to go, bedtime.
Well, I mean, hey, give me a break here.
You don't want to go to bed.
Trust me, like I said, my father, he's just like you. He's still working. He's 71 years old. Bedtime's around 9:30. So I know. But it was good. It was good having you on. Really,
I appreciate it. I had enjoyed myself. I hope we could do it again.
Absolutely.
That sort of thing. Give it a chance. I'll be able to tell you, other things, once we get it going. I mean, we covered a lot of territory,
Right.
And that's an important thing to do. But for someone like myself, I mean, I don't really say much unless I have something to say, and so it's a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah.
And It's too bad we all don't, people don't live that close together to go out and have a coffee. You know, that's the thing. That's the one thing I found that I enjoy. Even with something like just having these gatherings through StreamYard and what used to be the
Google Hangouts.
Hangouts. It's a way of at least people with like minds being able to at least talk to each other.
Exactly.
And so, but anyway, I appreciate it, and I look forward to getting back together with you.
Oh yes, definitely. Like we will do this again another time. Maybe right when you're getting ready to launch your next campaign. I think that'll be a good time.
Oh yeah, that would be good. Yeah, then I can tell you exactly what I've got and what where I am and what's happening. So
that sounds good. Sounds good. So, guys in the chat, thank y'all so much for showing up and hanging out with us tonight. And for all you people that are checking us out later, you see it on the screen. You see Ruff Sketch. That it is in the description below. You can check it out. You can if you want to fund it, please absolutely do. It's still open. It's in demand right now. So yeah, y'all have a good one, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.